I'm going to keep my camera on, so please don't get too excitable if my camera shows something you might not expect to see here. I hope everyone is able to see the slide deck that I have presenting now. I'm going to go ahead and full screen this, if I can remember how to do that quickly. I'll do it the slow way. So if you're not able to see, please chime in now, since I'm not sure what exactly that may have done to the screen here. I'm unable to get back to Google Meet if I go full screen, but I do want to get as much of the screen in as I can.
We can see it.
Okay, thank you very, very much. So this particular session then is designed to help us get a quick look at what COVID has taught us about online learning and course design. Over the course of this particular session here today, we'll look at some of those lessons that we've learned. We'll explain exactly what we mean by course design. I'll go over each of the 12 quality design standards that the college uses to review online courses. And I'm hoping there's going to be a little time for Q&A at the end. But if there isn't, I've included spots throughout where we can pause and discuss any questions that we may have about this. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question I have for you then is, what is most challenging about this recent online experience teaching in the past 6 weeks or so? I'm guessing it's going to be some of these areas, but there may be others. The technology is new. There's a lot of it coming at us all at once. The time management can be really tricky. When are due dates? Normally I just say them to students. When am I going to grade or record these lectures? I could do it at the same time I normally would, but I've got so many other things I need to do as well. These meet sessions, timing those so that everybody can meet together, and just holding meetings that we have as faculty as well. Academic honesty. Plagiarism is a really, really concerning issue, and we don't know if we can proctor all exams. What do we do if we can't? We couldn't for a long period of time. The summer courses will have that ability, but what happens when it goes away? Are students even engaged in our courses in the past few weeks? There have been crickets during meet sessions. I'm sure many faculty have experienced that. There seems to be a lack of interest in teaching and learning at all, and there's a ghosting problem, not just with students either. There are a few faculty have ghosted as well. How do we contact them? Nobody knows where they are. So there's quite a few challenges associated with teaching online. I'm going to jump out of this and ask if anyone has others that they might be familiar with. Any other challenges you're experiencing? That seemed to pretty much cover it. Then let's keep going then. Other than these challenges, there may have been some rewarding pieces that you may have noticed over the last few weeks as well. Technology can be kind of fun. It may open some more doors and possibilities for you in your classes of things that you can do with your students. You may find that you've got flexible time now. Your commute time is saved. You don't have to drive to and from work anymore. You can work around appointments during the day and the events that you may have scheduled. So there's some pluses there. And you have some more real-world interaction here. You're introduced to these students' families and their homes and their pets and their socioeconomic status. You kind of learn a lot more that helps flesh out the picture of your students for you. So there are some rewards that can come about it too. I'm sure that everyone has something that they've kind of perked up about that can put into the happy thoughts file over the past few weeks. But probably overall, we're thinking this is exhausting. There's always something new to learn. There's no pause for it. It just keeps coming at us. It devours our time. It takes twice as long to do absolutely everything. And it's really distracting to our concentration. There are studies being done right now that say that this is part of why we're so exhausted. While we're teaching, we're trying to focus on our students that we can't necessarily see anymore right there in class. The content has to be switched to make it deliverable online. The technology has to be learned, and I have to make sure it's working right. And my family is calling for me all at once. All of those things require us to segment our concentration and can be utterly exhausting at the end of the day, the end of one session even. So overall, good course design can help you balance these multiple confusing pieces together and end up with a learning experience that's going to be a good quality one for students. If they need a good quality teaching, a teacher present in their course and working with them, if they need that social interaction with teachers and students and between students, and if we know that they need to be cognitively present and aware in their course, if we can find that sweet spot between those three, those courses are much more successful online. But how much of that was affected by COVID this term? Our teaching quality may have slipped a little because we didn't have quite the same focus or time to devote to that part. The social piece really is lost if you can't log on at all because your internet is down or your computer's weak or your phone's heating up sitting in a parking lot and may go out on you at any moment. It's difficult to really feel you're connecting socially. And how many of us just really wanted to shut down, or how many students really did shut down? So all three of those pieces combined made our learning experiences pretty challenging over the last several weeks. So let's look at what we mean by course design, and then I'll pause for a few questions. Course design does not mean that online learning is looking at the instructor's performance. In fact, design has nothing at all to do with performance. It has to do with setup. More on that in a moment. We're also not talking about changing curriculum. The curriculum needs to stay exactly as it is in the official course syllabus. What instead we're talking about is making sure that the content and the rigor and the instruction intensity match that a student would get in a face-to-face course. We want to make sure that everything in the course is easy to use, easy to access, easy to find. We want to make sure that the essential information is featured and all distracting pieces are gone or set in a separate section that could be accessed when the student desires. They shouldn't have to encounter it at any time. We're talking about preparing an engaging, collaborative learning environment with interaction frequent and assessment just as often. And we're talking about guidance that the instructor can provide in the course without having to do so verbally. In other words, you don't have to stop and keep telling students the same answers that happen to be in the syllabus. We set the course up in advance so that all of those exist and anyone could potentially step in and take over easily. Any student could step in and have a quality experience in that course. The results of good course design mean that we have consistent quality across all online courses. There isn't one section with teacher X who's teaching half of what all the other sections with teacher Y are teaching. The consistency is needed. There are much fewer student complaints and problems regarding what the instructor says. What the instructor told me doesn't show up if there is written content in the course that provides that guidance. Students have higher engagement, higher course satisfaction. They retain the concepts better, get better grades, and more students that can then go on to complete that academic plan. So by design, we're talking about an overall setup, a few activity assessment pieces that may need some assistance in doing technology or in formatting, but the vast majority of this is taking what an instructor already does and making it work online with the instructor not always there to help guide the students. There are some guiding principles here, just a few that I've tried to pull together. The variety is key. If you're just doing text and test, your students are going to leave your course. Video, audio, images, interactive activities, all of that is what's going to keep them wanting to come back and see what you're delivering the following week. Make sure that no matter what you put in, you're working to remove obstacles. Use universal design for everything. We'll talk about that more. Examples and models can go really far to helping students really make a concept concrete and prove to them this is what I want to see, as opposed to have them guess what you prefer. If you chunk everything in 15-minute bursts, they're going to go through your course faster, believe it or not. If you're present for them, in other words, you don't check out and only come in every 2 weeks, then it's going to be a much better course for everyone. If you're transparent and fair, and if you ask for help when you need it, everything is going to go very, very smoothly. But this requires quite a bit of preparedness, getting your course ready before you actually start the term. So before I go further, I'm going to go ahead and back up and get back into our Google Meet room and see if there are any questions. Complaints about workload. Oh my, yes. Students are definitely complaining about the extra workload, but I'm betting faculty have quite a bit of an extra workload as well. One way that you can reduce that is to not necessarily have all of the same activities you would do face-to-face. I used to have a quick quiz at the start of the class and then move into our class activities when I did face-to-face, that is. And then we'd finish off with another little short written exit ticket, if you will. I couldn't do either of those pieces on a daily basis in my online course. There just wasn't enough time, and students would have started rejecting them. So being very selective in what you're having students do is very important to ensuring that they won't complain about the workload going forward. Any other questions, or shall we keep moving? All right, I shall keep going then. We have 11 quality standards for our online courses. Now, what many people don't know is that we developed these from a national clearinghouse, if you will, that devised, I think it's something like 86 standards for online courses. But if we were to try to apply that many standards, I don't think any one of our courses would have even made it through the first analysis. So we looked at that and pared it down to 11. The Quality Matters standards are the closest to what we're using. That's the one that has 80 some odd. But we're only down to 11. We think we've made some a little more general. We've pulled some things together. But overall, these are those that work best for us. Those standards were shared governance approved. They started through a subcommittee of student learning and support, moved through that committee, were approved through assessment, and therefore these are the standards that we are using to apply to online courses. Any faculty who designs a new online course, meaning it's never been offered before online at Jefferson College, must take it through what's called the online course peer review process to get it approved. It usually takes a little while, but I think right now we're suspending a lot of these processes in order to get them up and running quickly. I believe that any new online course is awarded a stipend or some kind of monetary compensation for preparing that course, but it won't be provided until after that course has gone through this online course review process. So those stipends will be a little delayed for many faculty right now, but we expect that they'll be able to receive them within probably 9 months to a year. During departmental IA years, previous courses are selected to go through the online course review peer process again. This is to make sure that any changes over the last 5 to 10 years haven't affected the course in such a way that it is now grossly misaligned to something, that new technologies have all been updated, just kind of making sure that everything's still copacetic on that class. The 11 standards then, all of these we've decided are very vital for our students and our faculty to have courses that will comply with federal guidelines, that will allow us to keep all of our funding that we receive from the government, and ensure that the courses will transfer for students when they move to another institution. These standards will also allow us to argue very, very solidly that the courses we offer should transfer to other institutions as well. So we'll go over each of these individually here, starting with, of course, getting started. The point here is that you're establishing what students should do to begin. As soon as they click on that Blackboard course link, what do I do? and you're letting them know what to do regularly. So the point here is your course orientation. Where is everything, and what are the regular procedures I'm going to be needing to do? In order to facilitate this, put both syllabi in your course. The official course syllabus has a link that you can easily provide to students, and your individual course syllabus can be placed in however you wish. If you put both in, it is easy for students to have the information they need if they need to transfer. They can see everything they need in order to be successful in the course for both Jefferson College purposes, the country's purposes, Department of Ed, as well as their individual needs that they have. Make sure you provide a course schedule with deadlines associated with that as well. Students want to see due dates. If we give them to them, they will try their best to adhere to them usually, but if they don't know when something's due, they will not even start. And send your own course letter in advance. Online Learning sends one right before each term to kind of orient everyone to the basic needs. But send your own to let students know, this is who I am. Hi, how you doing? Here's the things you need to know about our course. And by that, by letter, I mean email works just fine. For getting started, put a specific area or a folder module, if you will, that's labeled Start Here for Students. That lets them know exactly where to go. Have a copy of the welcome letter in it, introduce you, your credentials, a short video showing students where things are located in the course, clear steps that they need to submit your assignments. Make sure associated format guidelines are in there as well if you're consistent with them. Direct students to that syllabus document immediately. That, as you know, all of your important information is in there, so send them there right away. And give them a short activity to help them practice some of those common tasks and to ensure that they know what's in your syllabus. If you have those pieces, getting started goes pretty smoothly, and it reduces the number of questions about how am I supposed to do something 3-4 weeks into the semester. Keep your course calendar here or in the syllabus area. I put it in both places just to make sure that students are going to look for that. It's one of the most commonly needed documents, and having it in a place where they can quickly access it is important. HLC looks for that document too. Don't forget that. Building community then is our second standard. And what that requires is that our group of students and our faculty members, singular or plural, all together are actually working together, not kind of separately siloed. This needs to be a comfortable space to learn for them. They need multiple opportunities to interact with each other, and not just the boring text-based discussion boards. I'll get to that in a moment too. This nurtures confidence, respect, and gives them the opportunity to grow. Make sure you include yourself in there. You are a part of that community. Don't just suggest that they interact. Require it. Give points for it. Have them work together to preliminarily set something up for an assignment. They don't have to each they have to each get a grade, but they don't have to all work together on a final product. They can work together on pieces of that. And make sure that your clear expectations are there, because that's what's going to guide their behavior in the long run. Some best practices here: be friendly and approachable, but be real. If you're trying to puff up and say that, oh, I know this, I understand this, you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get caught if you really don't know what you're talking about. So be realistic. If you don't know an answer, tell them you don't know the answer, and you'll get back to them. They will know if you're trying to pull a fast one on them. Phrase everything positively whenever you can. Using not a lot is really discouraging. There's usually a way to phrase something pretty positively, so try to avoid all the lists of don'ts. Provide an incentive for contacting you. I would, usually twice a semester, email my students, every single one of them, and say, okay, here's a bonus point opportunity. 2 points on the next quiz if you reply to this email in 24 hours with your favorite song, or your favorite color, or your favorite place to be, or whatever. Something simple that they clearly know the answer to. Within 24 hours, they get 2 points, which isn't going to make or break their grade, and I am assured that they are checking their email. They are starting to do those student practices that we need them to do regularly. Any incentive for that is going to go far to building those habits. Google Meet, we'll go over in a little more detail in a minute. Use it for office hours. If you set office hours, just open up the room. You'll be able to hear when they come in usually, and somebody can drop in. They are not going to want to set up a time to meet with you, to schedule it, to pull it into their calendar. If they want to meet with you, tell them there's an office hour set, give them the link, and then just open it for that hour. More students go there. In fact, I tend to prefer to call them student hours. I get students to be much more interested in meeting with me than if I call it office hours, which makes it sound like I just want a grade, leave me alone. Encourage them to do study groups and collaborate on things whenever possible, and make sure that you're requiring these kinds of interactions. Working alone is great, and many students choose online for that reason, but they're also easy to slide away and lose interest if they're not connecting with someone, even if it's just you in the course. Regarding communication then, make sure that you're clear where, when, how, and why you will communicate and they should communicate with you. This is to allow for clarity of contact. Provide your availability and your preferred method of contact, but don't only say you'll answer that way. We must allow as many different methods as possible for students to contact us within reason, but we can't limit it to just one, because if that one path closes to us, Blackboard Messages goes down. If that's the only thing you said you can contact students through, they are now unable to contact you. So give a few different methods, but do let them know your preferred. Put these notices in multiple areas, your syllabus, your faculty information page, in several spots so they know how to contact you quickly if need be. Note when you go dark. If you contact me after 9:30 p.m. or on the weekends, I get to choose whether it's important enough to go ahead and respond to you. Otherwise, I'll get back to you usually within about 3 or 4 hours. But I go dark, I mean dark. Tell them what should happen if they don't get a response. If there's no contact from you within 24, 48 hours, what do they do next? Make sure that's in there. And let them know how formal the email and the classwork should be. Are you okay with informal emails? Are you okay with them calling you yo prof? Or do you want Dr. whatever because you earned that title? Be very clear ahead of time and students will appreciate it. They won't be fumbling to try not to offend you. Some other best practices: be as concise as you possibly can. Students will avoid long form text. If you give lecture notes and they're 6 pages long, they will skip it. If you give them a syllabus that is 30 pages long, they will skim it and will likely need you to guide them to the specific sections when they need it, not before then. Be very clear. The simplest language is best if you're giving directions. If there are problems they may encounter, go to the end and use a questions and answers, or Q&A, or a frequently asked questions area. Put that information there at the end of your instructions. That way it's not confusing those students who didn't have that question to begin with. Include the number of times you expect students to check the course each week and how many times you will be checking it this week, each week, that is. And please tell them to go to the help desk. This goes for you too. If you want notifications pushed to your phone or text alerts sent to your phone anytime something is needed of you, Blackboard allows you to do that, but it has to be manually set up by the user. So we're happy to walk you through those steps so that you can get these kinds of notifications, but we are not going to push every student and faculty member's phone number into Blackboard. That's a setup that you need to decide to opt in for. So I've got another spot here where I can go ahead and stop and ask about questions. We're a few standards into our list. So let me look over. Beverly Myers said, adjuncts don't have an office phone number other than email. How do they contact us? Well, you have the Google Chat. You have a Google Meet that you can say in here too. So you can schedule meetings that way if you need to schedule them. But I would suggest, and other instructors do this, Google Voice will allow you to set up a phone number that will serve as kind of a portal. Everything will come to and go out of that number that is not your personal number. So if you set up a Google Voice account, you can give them that number and you're hiding your personal information from them, as Betty said. And Ruth and Betty and yep, every single one of them is talking about Google Voice. So good to know that we've got a lot of very knowledgeable faculty in here. The first number is free. After that, if you have to change it, it's $10 for a new number, Betty says. So Betty seems to be one of our experts. So thank you, Betty. Any other further questions about communication and issues like that? All righty then. Whoops, I hit the wrong one, so I get to fly through really quick. My apologies. Sorry. Sorry, communication. Now we are back to course outcome alignments. This is where we make sure that online courses and the face-to-face courses should match completely in terms of course outcomes. And this means that the assignments are aligned to the course outcomes. There's nothing extraneous. One side isn't getting a different course experience than the other. For example, if we have courses with lab components, we must have an associated lab component online, or that's not the same course and we can't offer it online. Make sure you're posting the official course syllabus to ensure that students are confident they're getting the same content. Anytime you have an activity or an assignment that you want students to complete, if you list the outcomes from the course syllabus, that allows students to see that there's a reason for doing this. You are doing this activity in order to support your learning for this outcome, which is what you're paying for. If you remove something from your course, make sure that you're still covering that outcome. In many cases, you're able to do this, and you can focus more intently on one assignment than trying to do two that kind of cover the same thing. And the fewer number of assignments that you assign, the fewer you have to grade. But if you make them much more impactful, make the outcome clearly achieved or not from one activity as opposed to three, then that will help the time commitment issue we talked about earlier. You can have an alternative activity as well. If you really, really love the final paper that you use in composition, you may not love it so much if students are struggling to write a paper in Microsoft Word, if it doesn't work on their computer, but they might want to build a website for that concept. So there are lots of different alternatives that you may want to consider if something doesn't seem to work online. We can assist you in the Office of Learning to find activities and materials that will support outcome instruction. If you can't think of something that works that might be kind of cool or uses technology in a way that is more like what they would do in real world situations, contact us and we'll see if we can't help work through and find something you will be happy with and your students would like as well. Remember that every outcome from that course syllabus must be covered and assessed during the course. Some have more outcome lists than others, math for example, but everything that's in there needs to be assessed at some point in that course. If it doesn't support the outcome, get it out of there. It's just extraneous and students won't know why they're doing it. Remember, our goal here is not to just use snazzy technology. It's to be sure that students reach that outcome. Avoid using all that cool publisher content if it's not even going to touch the approved outcomes. Avoid using all of it in any case. Pick and choose the pieces that are important for you. Next is our grade criteria standard. This means that students need to be able to easily see how their grade is affected by everything they do in the course. So post your course grading scale prominently. Yes, it's in the syllabus. Yes, it's usually in the official course syllabus, but make sure it's clearly there, not buried in a document they have to download. Provide scoring guides or rubrics for everything, absolutely everything if you can. That gives you objectivity. That gives clear guidelines for students. They're going to worry more about their grades if they don't have some clarity there. Rubrics will help grading be much faster, so it's a big plus for online. And I can help you create rubrics for just about any need. I'm getting very fast at it. Some important notes about grades. If your official course syllabus uses categories for overall grades, please contact me. Scoring errors are very common otherwise. This is because Blackboard does not make it very intuitive or transparent how it calculates weighted grades, and it can be grossly inflated if you're not careful. If you don't want to grade something, don't assign it. Alter your assignments to make them enjoyable for you to grade and for students to do. Make sure students know how to access the scores and the feedback too. So many of them get to their graduation day and claim that they had no idea that certain faculty had worked really hard to provide feedback because they didn't see where it was located on Blackboard. So give them a few moments to let them know and show them exactly where, via video, this is how you get feedback from me. You're leaving it embedded in Blackboard. Few bits on assessments. Now, being co-chair of the assessment committee and being a part of the online learning and assessment department, I think I know a little bit about this. The point of assessments then is ensuring that students know how to improve. Notice I didn't put a number on that. This is proof of achievement. If you align all point-bearing activities to official course outcomes and ensure that students fully understand their score here, give individual feedback for all assignments. Rubrics can take care of a lot of the timing on that, doing it practically automatically for you, and make sure that students understand why they're doing something. The point here is for them to improve. If they don't see the point of something, they're not going to improve. They're just going to avoid. We don't want that. So the differences then between assessment and grading can still be kind of confusing. The focus is first. Assessment looks to improve. Grading looks just to see where they've gotten so far. It's a single snapshot moment. Assessment is providing guidance for correction. Grading gives you a number or a letter. Assessment is looking at quality and wants to increase it. Grading wants to just judge it. Assessment should be continuous. One performance informs the next one, which informs the next one. And grading is really a simple snapshot of one contextualized performance. Assessment views that work against the outcome. Grading can provide credit for non-outcome elements. Spelling, timeliness bonus, was it 4 pages long? All of those have very little, if anything, really to do with improving the outcome. It has more to do with other factors. So when we talk about assessment, grading can inform our assessment practices, but it's not pure assessment by itself. Something has to come after, and that's usually the improvement focus. What's going to happen next to make sure that this gets better? A little bit more. Instructors can often struggle with this. Multiple choice exams. They can be easy to cheat. If you're standing in the room with them or you're sending to the testing center, they're not so easy to cheat on. But proctoring is very expensive and very challenging to implement online. If you don't have the technology, if you don't have the internet access that's strong enough, an online proctored exam isn't for you, and instructors aren't supposed to require them unless everyone has that technology. So our COVID response had to deal with the fact that most students aren't quite prepared to take a webcam proctored exam right off the bat. So we rolled out and got a whole bunch of computers to a whole bunch of people, and we're still in the process of doing that to ensure that there's equity in proctoring. Instead of dealing with proctoring, consider strengthening the assessments instead. The strongest ones that you have are going to give you a picture of that student's learning and help you move them further in and get better. I can help you create a lot of these strong assessments. They'd use fewer of those quick response test questions that are easy to cheat or just to guess on for that matter. More open-ended ones. They can make sure that they're real-world situations so students can produce portfolio-level work. They also require higher order thinking skills than just a simple recall. And objectivity and clear performance expectations are a part when a rubric is involved. If you've completed any of the general education program assessment practices, you'll know that there's a lot to be said about good quality designed assessments, and that multiple choice questions are very difficult to glean any usable information out of. So let's stop again. Now that we've got a few more pieces out of the way, any further questions on assessments and the kind of technologies that we're looking at? Let's see. Student feedback is not obvious to find on their end at all. More on the students' Blackboard interaction here in a moment, but yeah. Are we switching from Blackboard and when? The Board of Trustees has to make that decision at their May meeting. We have a recommendation before them. The recommendation is that we do switch, but we don't know if they're going to accept that or not. A lot depends on the budget. Other questions about assessments? Then I'll keep moving. I'm going to click the right one this time. Next, we look at the materials that you've selected in order to present to students the content that you have. These materials should all meet the individual needs of each learner. What that means is we need a variety here. Textbooks and handouts aren't going to be enough for students online. In a face-to-face classroom, they will hear you. They will see you move throughout the space. They will move themselves as they're writing things down. You may have them move around the room. None of that necessarily happens in a text and test classroom. So we need something to engage them. They want creativity as well, every classroom. They will go elsewhere if it's text and test, an online class. Those are offered all over the place. They can find it somewhere else. If you use real world and professional level materials whenever possible, you're preparing them for their careers as well as helping them respect that you're not just trying to give them something for the classroom, you're giving them skills that they can use later. And if you chunk into 15-minute bursts, that's going to meet a lot more of those individual needs as well. There are so many possibilities out there for online courses other than textbook and test. If you are interested in any of these types of pieces, podcasts, guest speakers, open educational resources, other webinars, interactive modules, having students create videos, talk to me in online learning and we'll see if we can't get some really cool stuff out there for your students. Students need 3 types of interaction in order to have a decent online learning experience. They need to be able to interact with the content in unique ways, with fellow students, and with their instructor as well. Those 3 types basically come down to how will students encounter the content and how will they interact with each other. We know they're going to interact with you, especially through feedback that you provide on the assignments. But these interactions, most of the time people forget about the content part. What are they going to do when they actually approach that content? How many of them have said, I never cracked open the textbook? That approach, how to crack open the textbook, how to get started on that, is part of the problem. If there were a better way that we could guide students to cracking open that book, open up the book, find 2 sentences that mean absolutely nothing to you whatsoever right now. Put those in the discussion board and give the page number. Now you've got some talking going on and students are exploring that textbook anyway. So finding ways of getting them to encounter that content a little more differently is very key here. Check in at least once a week with all of your students, as individually with others as you need. The discussion boards are really, really flexible. Most people think it's just type a couple sentences and hit reply and move along. You can put videos in there. You can put websites in there. It's all formatable text, so you can create little squares of all kinds of pretty colors and images. And there's so much flexibility to it. If you're interested in expanding that, I encourage you to go through the CTL resources page on the faculty tab. In the archive there, you'll see a no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Shake Up Your Discussion Boards is a slideshow that gives a whole bunch of different options to use with your discussion boards. If you're not sure how to get students to get more engaged with something because, oh my, how engaging is a math textbook? Give them some guiding questions. As you look at this chapter, ask yourself these questions. As you look at this activity, ask these questions or answer these questions. Come up with 3 questions you have. Give them something to help guide them. For discussion board posts, when I taught literature-based classes, I gave them required questions that they had to answer. I will not give you credit for 2 comments for other students unless you answer one of these questions or you pose a different one. I couldn't give them credit if it was, yeah, I agree, which is what we all get. So I have those questions listed for you. If you want those, drop me a line. I'll send them along to you. And a really important note about interaction here. Quality, substantive, regular interaction in an online course is required by federal guidelines. What this means is since we receive federal funds, we must provide college credit bearing courses, not correspondence courses. The difference is the regular, substantive interaction. You must be present in the course regularly. Let students know you are responding directly to them individually and that you value having a dialogue about their learning. If you are present in the course working with students individually throughout the course and they are interacting with you, you're fine, no problems. If a student doesn't participate for more than 2 weeks and they can be dropped from the course administratively, instructors should participate more than 2 weeks and more often, in fact. It's pretty questionable in some cases with, you've got what we call a robo course where everything is text and test and the instructor doesn't have to actually do any grading since it's automatic. That's not a college credit bearing course. That's a correspondence course and there's a risk for lawsuits and something like that. So we have to have that kind of interaction. Another piece about online interactions, and this is the Google Meet part I wanted to get to. Synchronous communication means communicating at the same time. Usually you get immediate feedback. Asynchronous means it's over a length of time. Feedback is often delayed. Fully online courses are held asynchronously, meaning you're not ever expected to be talking at the same time with your students. Hybrid courses use both. In the face-to-face component, you're going to be talking and working synchronously. But when it's online, you're asynchronously. Google Meet is a synchronous communication tool with a tiny little asynchronous chat feature. Because it's synchronous, you can allow students to use Google Meet for your student hours, study groups, but you cannot require it for fully online courses. You can record a Meet session and post it, but attendance can't be taken, so therefore it can't be required that students meet with you at that time. And I hope that makes sense, because when we start moving back into online, face-to-face, Google Meet can't be used the same way that it currently is now. Now that I got that, let's go pop back over here and check more questions. An example of an alternative to a multiple choice question. It depends on the subject. But for example, let's see. If you were looking at, I'm thinking of something like, if in a history course, your multiple choice question is, here are 3 dates, pick the correct date. Instead of asking a question like that, which is just simple date recall, instead, find a way to assess what you're really going after there. Ask them a more open-ended question, such as, what were the major impacts of the Civil War? Then you can get dates incorporated in there, but only really ask questions that ask for simple recall of facts if that's what you need them to do. If you're needing them really to show an outcome, it's unlikely that that outcome is a fact-based one. It's probably a skill, or it's a concept in depth. So question how far in depth they understand that concept and have them formulate an answer like that. Most of these are going to be a little bit more wordy or project-based type questions. A multiple choice question can be structured to be more than recall. Yes, indeed it can. And I'm not saying outlaw all multiple choice questions. Some of them, that's a perfect question type for it. Instead, what I'm saying is that they might not be assessing what you want them to. You can structure them to be more than just recall and require a bit more processing first, but it's still, are you authentically assessing them, or did I just happen to correctly guess C? There's a lot in the CTO Resource Teaching Toolbox, indeed. This is in the archive, though, that discussion board slideshow. That last question, can't use Google Meet like we are now. Google Meet can't be used for holding a synchronous class session for an online course, fully online course. So if you are teaching English 101 and it's fully online, I cannot tell my students, we will meet. You are required to meet on Thursday at 10 a.m. every week. It's an online course. It's a flexible scheduling course for those students. If it were a hybrid course, then they would say, this course meets Thursday at 10 o'clock. And you can decide if it's going to be via Google Meet, it's going to be on campus, however that works for that piece. But a fully online course should not require use of Google Meet. I hope that clarifies it. Criteria for attendance taking in a fully online course. Right now, you don't have to. Right now, we have a computer program that's set up to automatically determine if students are attending the online course, so faculty don't actually have to take it unless a student does some activity outside of Blackboard that you feel should qualify them as attending that week. So if they post on the discussion board, if they submit an assignment, if they take a test, if they do a blog, if they do a wiki post, all of those pieces, if they email you through Blackboard, all of those pieces will check a box and that student will be counted as attending that week. If they don't do any of that, they're not in attendance. And they can, and often will, be dropped after 21 days of not popping into that course. Synchronous online would be a hybrid. There's no such thing as a synchronous online because we call them something else. That would be called probably blended. And usually it's not you're required to do an online component. Usually we call those blended. They're rare. Oftentimes what we have is a hybrid course where students can't actually meet on campus. So the instructor runs, previously it was Adobe Connect, but they run a synchronous session like Meet at the same time. Use Google Meets in a fully online course without requiring it. You can use it for your student hours, office hours. You can use it for study groups. If you want to have a study session, it has to be an optional piece. You cannot require students to use that because it is a synchronous tool and online courses are asynchronous. All right. I'm going to jump back in because I think we're getting close to the end here and I know my time is getting very close. There's only a few pieces left, I feel. Course technologies. This standard, when the peer review team looks over it, make sure that any technology that's used in the course is varied, relevant, and current with support available. This comes into a problem when we run into things where a course hasn't been updated in ages, and then suddenly we have videos that are inaccessible. Suddenly we have Flash modules that students can't get to work. So we want to make sure that all of these actually work and that the tech that's selected supports the course. There must be a clear purpose anytime you introduce a new tech. It's a cool toy, but is there a real reason for using it in the course? If there's an obstacle to using it, remove it. If that means you give a short tutorial on it, give a short tutorial. If that means that 3 of your students don't have a laptop, let's find a way to get those 3 students laptops. So any kind of technology that you're including It has to be supportable and support the needs of the course. If your students are going to use it in the real world, try to use it in your course wherever you can. I know we're talking the software packages that can be thousands and thousands of dollars in some cases, but we might be able to recreate kind of a light version to at least help orient them to what they're going to be facing. In many cases, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Google applications are what they're going to use on the job, so we should have them using those. Make sure your instructions on them are in written format too. Not everybody can pick it up from a video. And please ensure that the help desk knows your tech as well. If you're unavailable, they will call the help desk. And if we don't even know you're using it, we can't provide any help. So anything that you think that students may have a challenge with, let us know what it is so that we can kind of brush up on it and provide assistance as well. Here's the Blackboard student orientation piece. Students are supposed to get their Blackboard orientation in the student orientation seminar session held before their first term. The problem we have is that many students don't take an SOS session, which means they don't get oriented to Blackboard. So assume they need a quick refresher. This is something we're going to change going forward. But do make sure that students understand where you're sending them in Blackboard. We'll do our best to get them oriented a little bit better going forward, starting in the fall. But assume they could use the refresher. 5 minutes isn't going to hurt. Any special application or software, give video and written instructions for all of the procedures that they're going to need to do. Institutional resources and support. This is access info for Jeffco services. Regarding the standard for our online course review, as long as you keep everything that's currently in the support area on the course menu in that area, you're fine. There's no problems with this at all. What we seek to build there is a full list of where to go for help. If you have content particular to your subject in your course or links to websites, feel free to put them down in that support area. We're not guarding that. We're just asking that the pieces that are currently there stay there. These direct students to areas that they may need for support, please send them there regularly. They may not know it exists. They may have forgotten it exists. Ask yourself what helps you when you're teaching in terms of professional sites and support. If it helps your students as well, stick it down in there. Help them stay connected and aware. You can create new content areas the same way as you do any other content area in the course and list everything you feel students need for your support. But make sure that it's there. Online students don't have these posters, the table tents, people walking past them to inform them of these. While we try to let them know via announcements, and COL 101 provides some information on all of these different support services, a single introduction isn't going to be enough. Mention them at every opportunity that you have. The Academic Success Center tutoring is absolutely excellent, but so few students really know it exists. Online Writing Lab, Math Lab, Project Success, the events that we have, there are places to find this information, but they only get it in tiny little bursts at the very start of their college career. So mention it as you can. The last standard then is one of my favorites. This is usability and access. Make it easy for everyone to use and access your pages. Universal design means that you're not thinking about how can I help the people who are blind? How can I help the people who are deaf? You're thinking about everyone's abilities and needs. You're providing multiple formats and options so that any student who happens to come into your class is not going to run into an obstacle just using or just accessing your content. Caption everything you can. Even if you only intend to use it once, feel free to run it by us. We've made this process more economical now, and we can caption absolutely everything. One of the things that I don't have a disability that would mean that I require captions, but every YouTube video I see, I double speed it and I throw the captions on. I can read faster than I can listen to someone. So half the time, twice the content. High contrast colors. Alt text for all images. We're going to go out and roll out the alt text stuff training in the fall. But high contrast colors means yellow on red and blue on black and white on dark colors. It does not mean using pale pink on medium pink backgrounds or purple on green, something that doesn't hurt to look at but can be clearly seen. Black and white is the standard for a reason. Black and yellow is actually a little better. Embed content if you can. Students will not download if they can avoid it. If they're on a phone, they will avoid it at every turn. They just don't have the space on the phone. So if you can embed things so that students will see it when they're scrolling the page and interact with it right there on the Blackboard page, that's much more likely to get your content read. Embedding content can be found in the Slick Slideshows slide deck. It's also in CTL archive. Universal Design says, how can I make this as easy as possible for absolutely everyone to use? Think of doorways. Previously, we had a doorknob or a hand pull or what have you to get a doorway open for us. What if you have packages in your hands? An automatic doorway that uses a red lens light to trigger an opening mechanism is universal design. It helps absolutely everyone, wheelchair bound or not. Those are the kinds of things we want to do. How can we make this inclusive? These 7 principles are here. I'm not going to go in detail, but every time you add or change something, consider how it impacts. How equitable is this? How simple is it? Can I see it clearly? Can I hear it if I need to? How tolerant of error will it be? How much effort does it take? And is it the right size or space? Please don't use super detailed pictures in a test question. Students taking these on laptops cannot read the detail in your pictures. These are the types of things we're talking about. Those 11 standards are the ones that we use for all online classes. So anytime that online learning faculty or staff, sorry, I'm not faculty, anytime online learning staff is going into a course, if anything alerts us suddenly, we will work with the instructor unless it's related to usability and accessibility. A lot of times faculty are changing the theme colors in their courses. We will turn that off if it creates an accessibility issue. This is ADA guidelines that we must adhere to. This is whether or not you have a student who has a documented disability on file. It helps universally, not just one student. That's the final slide that I have here. I have 2 minutes. Oh my goodness, I finished one on time. So the last 2 questions or comments that I have here, let's see, more than that actually. Slides available to us? Yes, I will make them available. They're also, no, well, I pulled them off the calendar invite because it was the wrong slides, sorry. The student has not completed any assignments in a fully online course. Will Jefferson College remove them? You can ask for an administrative withdrawal to do that, but if they have not, thinking of the word, participated, meaning they haven't posted in the discussion board, they haven't submitted anything, no tests. If they don't do that for 21 days, they will be administratively withdrawn. Eventually, they are definitely going to have to pay back financial aid. So if they still sit there in the course and still don't do anything, they're still going to have to pay back financial aid. You can ask for an administrative withdrawal, though. Summer section is synchronous online departmental approval. Okay, yes, if it's departmental approval and if the, I'm losing my word, the course schedule that students use to enroll, if that specifically states it, that it is a synchronous online class that must meet at this particular date and time, then you should be okay. Tuesday, that should be all right. Yes, slides will be provided. And those who are unable to type their name into the board here, I'm hoping to get a quick screenshot of everybody so I can get information to Cindy Rossi for purposes of CTL attendance. So are there any other further questions that we might have? Because I'm at 2 o'clock on the nose. Color preferences of page not matter unless you have a student who requires a, specific accommodation, correct. Keep the color preferences on all pages default unless you are certain it's going to be a high contrast color. If you're not certain, give us a holler. We'll check and let you know what tweaks could help make it so. Anything else? All righty, it now being 2:01, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you, everyone, and I will put it in the pedagogy course as soon as I have it available, probably on Monday afternoon. Thanks a lot, everyone.